problems, exposure, management risk, all of that, those are the same, actually, between human identities and non-human identities. The way they're used and the teams that need to deal with them, though, very, very different. When you think about human identities at most organizations, you're primarily thinking about your workforce. Non-human identities, machines, etc., the teams that are dealing with those are very different. You're really seeing engineering teams who are building systems, software systems, etc. They need to connect to other software systems. So the dynamic is very different. I still don't think people really understand the magnitude of the problem, which is really interesting, because they're not dealing with them in the way that they dealt with user identities. But with these workloads, with machine identities, non-human identities, they're really everywhere. They're just spread all across the organization. Anywhere software is being built or integrated, they're there. There is a big who owns this issue. And I think it's very interesting. When we talk to customers, you'll see the security group, in some cases, being very concerned about this. Or maybe in most cases, actually very concerned about this. Although they're not necessarily the people who implement a solution to that type of problem. That's pretty fascinating. Because really that often lives with the people who are building software and deploying it and all of the rest of it. But not all software engineering teams are as in tune with the risk or necessarily feel the responsibility for that. I do think there are a lot of forward-looking engineering teams who consider security just as important as velocity or quality or these other attributes of software systems. To them, it's very important. They're paying attention, but it's not exactly clear who should be dealing with this. If you go back to human identities, it is clear. You have an IAM team, generally, who deploys and maintains those systems. We found early on the IAM teams are not necessarily focused on the non-human identity problem, which is pretty interesting, actually. I think we're seeing a trend where security wants to lay down requirements or may have a strategic initiative like Zero Trust, but engineering teams and platform engineering teams, DevOps, etc., they ultimately are charged with meeting the requirements placed by security. So I think you're starting to see cooperation among those teams. I think the challenge, though, is they really speak different languages in many cases. You know, they work with different types of systems, different types of technologies on a day-to-day basis. And non-human identity is kind of at this nexus of where these two organizations work. That's a good opportunity for forward-looking organizations, but it's also a friction point sometimes, I think.
Aembit, manage access, not secrets.